But one promise that I have made, which I think is as important an issue as I can think of, and that is any person, any man or woman that I nominate to the United States Supreme Court will in fact have to pass a litmus test. And that litmus test is they will vote as soon as possible to overturn Citizens United. Go further than that. I want you to think big. I mean, what this campaign is about is asking people to change their mindset. I don't want people thinking small. I want people to think big. It is not just enough to overturn Citizens United and go back to where we were. It's an improvement. It is not enough. I want to see the United States of America be the strongest and most vibrant democracy in the world. I want to see us have one of the highest voter turnouts, not one of the lowest voter turnouts. Right. I want anybody here, regardless of your political views, conservative, moderate, progressive, whatever. I want you to be able to run for office because you love the country, you want your ideas to get out, and I don't want you to have to beg millionaires and billionaires for campaign funds. That is why I strongly believe we have got to move toward public funding of elections. Public funding of elections means that anybody who has some support can run and not be dependent on billionaires for their campaign funds. Now, when we talk about elections, there's another issue I want to talk about. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Washington at an event with Martin Luther King III. And what we were celebrating was the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. You all know what that is about. Right. Huge accomplishment, huge achievement. And finally, what the United States Congress said, signed by Lyndon Johnson, what the United States Congress said, we are going to end discrimination at polling places. All Americans, regardless of the color of their skin, can vote. What an achievement that was. But 2 years ago, in a terrible decision, the United States Supreme Court gutted significant provisions of the Voting Rights Act. And what we have seen since then is cowardly politicians all over this country making it harder for people to vote. Right. Now, you know, I'm a politician and I've run in a lot of elections. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. But it has never occurred to me to try to prevent people from voting because they might vote against me. I want to win elections based on the strength of my ideas. So when you have governors and legislatures making it very clear that they want to prevent low-income people or people of color or older people from voting, what I will tell you is these are cowardly politicians who don't have the courage to defend their ideas. And what we are going to do, we have just introduced legislation to make sure that every American over the age of 18 will in fact be registered to vote. We're going to end this voter suppression. When we talk about issues facing the American people, there are a number of initiatives that we need to bring forth if we're going to rebuild the crumbling middle class. I see a lot of young people here. And let me... okay, young people. Thanks for coming. Everybody here knows that we live in a very competitive global economy. No one debates that. And yet, quite insanely, in our country today, we have hundreds of thousands of bright young people who are qualified, who have done well in school, who want a higher education. They can't get it. And they can't get it for one reason. Their family does not have enough money. That is crazy. That is not only unfair to those young people, who want to move out of poverty, want to make it to the middle class. It is unfair to the future of this country, which desperately needs well-educated people in our workforce. And that is... So we need a revolution in higher education. And that is why I have introduced legislation and will fight for it as president, to make sure that every public college and university in America is tuition free. And this is important not only for kids in high school who can't afford to go to college. It's important for kids in the 5th grade today, here in Marion, who may not have parents who ever went to college, who don't know people who ever went to college, whose idea that going to college is unthinkable. I want every kid in America to know that if he or she studies hard, does their schoolwork well, has ambition, they in fact will be able to get a higher education. That is a revolution in education, and that is what we've got to fight for. When we talk about higher education, we also have got to deal with the absurdity that millions of Americans, young and some not so young, are struggling under oppressive, horrendous student debt. Yes. Now, we have a situation today which is really quite incredible. And that is, there are people here right now, I am sure, who are paying student debt interest rates of 6, 8, 10%. All right? Yet you, above that? Okay, what are you paying?
I went to default. I went from 6,000 to like 64,000.
13% interest rates. Meanwhile, you can refinance your home for 2, 3, 4%. What sense is that? So our legislation says you're going to be able to refinance your loans at the lowest interest rates you can find. And furthermore, we're going to get the United States government out of the business of profiteering on high interest rates for working class families. Now people say, well, Bernie, that's an expensive proposition. And they're right, it is. It's about $70 billion a year. How are you going to pay for that? And I will tell you how we're going to pay for that. We're going to put a tax on Wall Street speculation. The middle class of this country bailed out the greed, recklessness, and illegal behavior on Wall Street. It's time for Wall Street to help the middle class. When we talk about what's going on in America, there is an issue that we've got to think long and hard on. I want you to think about it. In America today, we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. Do you all know that?
Yes.
You got a country like China, which is a huge country, many times larger than we are. It is a communist, authoritarian country. We have more people in jail than China. So what does that mean? What it means and what it is related to is that we got 5.5 million young people in this country. And you know what they're doing right now? You think they're in school? They're not in school. We did a study recently. We had the Economic Policy Institute do a study. This is what they found about youth unemployment. For high school graduates between 17 and 20, if they were white, real unemployment, 33%. Hispanic, 36%. African American, 51%. Well, it seems to me to make a lot more sense to be investing in jobs and education for our young people than jails and incarceration. I do not want the United States of America to have the distinction of having more people in jail than any other country. That's going to end. I want the United States of America to be the country where our kids are employed and we have the best educated workforce in the world. Now, when we talk about income and wealth inequality, and when we talk about the collapse of the middle class, what we have got to understand that millions of our people here in Iowa, in my state of Vermont, all over this country, people are working at abysmally low wages. There is a reason why people are working at 2 or 3 jobs, and that is their jobs are not paying them a living wage. In my view, the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. We need to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour over the next few years. It is not a radical idea to say that if somebody works 40 hours a week, that person should not be living in poverty. And when we talk about the United States of America, there's another issue we got to put on the table. And many of you know this. Today, shamefully, the United States is the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right. I live in Burlington, Vermont. It's 100 miles from the Canadian border. They have health care for all of their people. You go to Europe, they have health care for all of their people. And yet in America, we have 35 million without any insurance, and many of you are underinsured with high deductibles and high co-payments. And yet, we end up spending almost twice as much per person on health care as do the people of any other nation. The time is long overdue to tell the private insurance companies, to tell the drug companies, they cannot continue to rip off the American people. And in my view, we need to move toward a Medicare for all single-payer system. You know, my Republican colleagues go around the country talking about their family values. They just love families. Stay up nights worrying about families. But you know, and I know, what their family values mean. What their family values are about are telling women, you do not have the right to control your own body. I disagree. Telling our gay brothers and sisters they cannot get married or enjoy the other benefits of American citizenship. I disagree. I've got 4 kids, 7 grandchildren, and my wife Jane and I have been married 27 years. We believe in family values, but it's not Republican family values.
Yes.
And let me tell you what my family values are. First of all, we have got to end the international embarrassment of being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee family and medical leave to all working people. You know what that means? That means in Iowa today and in Vermont today, there is a woman who is giving birth, and if she doesn't have adequate income, she has to go back to work in 3 days, 5 days, or 8 days. She's not being able to get to know her baby, to love her baby, to bond with her baby because she doesn't have enough money. That is not a family value. That is the opposite of a family value. And that is why I believe the United States is going to join every other major country on earth and guarantee at least 3 months of paid family and medical leave for people who are in need and who have babies. Look, what this campaign is about is bringing people together. We are not going to let the Republican Party divide us up by race, by whether we're born in America or not, by our sexual orientation, by our gender. We're going to bring black and white together, Hispanic together, Native-born Americans together, people who weren't born in this country together. And we are going to transform America. But the main point maybe I want to tell you, this campaign is not just about electing Bernie Sanders. It is about transforming America. And let me tell you what no other presidential candidate will tell you. And that is that the powers that be, corporate America, the billionaire class, the large campaign donors, these people have so much power that no president will be able to take them on and transform this country on behalf of working families unless there is a political revolution. Unless millions of Americans stand up loudly and proudly and say that this country, our government, belongs to all of us and not just a handful of the wealthiest people in this country. Now that's a tough fight, guys. I don't want to fool you. This is a really tough fight because these people have unlimited economic power, unlimited political power, significant control over the media. But the future of America depends upon us creating that kind of movement where people all over this country are thinking big. And what they are saying, yes, in America, we can lead the world in combating climate change. Yes, we can transform our energy system. Yes, we can join the rest of the industrialized world. If Canada and Europe could do it, yes, we can guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child. Yes. You know, what's going on today is you got millions of working families. Mom and dad go out to work, and they're worried about the quality of the pre-K program or the child care system they're leaving their kids in. Often unaffordable, often the quality is not as good as it can be. Yes, America can have the best child care affordable system in the world. We can do it. Yes, we can make college education available to all, regardless of their income. Point is, we can do that, and we can move forward in the fight for racial justice and reforming our broken criminal justice system. All over this country, people are saying, no, it is unacceptable that unarmed African Americans are being dragged out of cars. People are being shot without any reason. That is wrong. And what we are going to do is transform our criminal justice system. Our job is to keep people out of jail, not put them in jail. Our job is to end the militarization of local police departments. Our job is to make sure that private corporations are not running jails. Corporations should not be profiteering by locking up people. Yeah. Our job is to make sure that when people do go to jail, there is a path back out of jail. Jobs, housing, education. So, bottom line is that what this campaign is about is bringing millions of people together to reclaim our nation. Nobody I know, not most working class Republicans, not Democrats, not progressives, not conservatives, are content with a system in which so few have so much and so many have so little. Very few people are content with a system in which billionaires are able to purchase candidates and buy elections.
Give them hell!
And they deserve it. I think Harry Truman said, they think it's hell, but it's really just the truth. And that's all that I'm telling you. It's just the truth. But here's the point, guys. Yes, I am so happy you're here. And I need your help to get elected. But let me give you the bad news. The bad news is we got your names. And I need your help not only to get elected, more importantly, I need your help the day after the election. Because at the end of the day, no president can take on the enormous powers that be unless millions of people are standing beside him. All right? If we want to make public colleges and universities tuition free, we're going to need 1 million young people marching on Washington, telling the Republicans that is the way it is going to be. We tell Wall Street and corporate America they're not going to put their profits in the Cayman Islands and other tax havens and avoid paying their fair share of taxes. Millions of people are going to have to stand with me and say, Wall Street, you owe the American people. Now is the time to pay up. So I need more than your vote. We need a political revolution. We need you to be reaching out to your friends and your neighbors. Let me conclude by saying this. The truth of the matter is that the Republican agenda is literally a fringe agenda. Talk to your Republican friends. And you ask them whether they think it makes sense to cut Social Security, cut Medicare, cut Medicaid, cut Pell Grants, cut nutrition programs, and by the way, give $250 billion in tax breaks to the wealthiest 0.2%. Very few people, regardless of their political persuasion, believe that makes sense. So we got to reach out to our Republican friends and say, yes, we may disagree on this issue or that issue. But for the sake of our kids, for the sake of our parents, we have got to stand together and create a government which starts working for ordinary Americans and not just the billionaire class. America today, most people don't know this, we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. You all know that? Yep. Wealthiest country in the history of the world, but most people don't know that. They say, wealthiest country, what are you talking about? I'm working 3 jobs. Wealthiest country, I can't afford to feed my family. Wealthiest country, I can't afford childcare to send my kid to college. But we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Problem is, almost all of the new wealth and income is going to the top 1%. Our job together is to change that, is to create an economy that works for the elderly, that works for the kids, that works for the middle class, that works for working families. And together, we can do that. Thank you all.